Good afternoon, everyone. It is February 21st, 2020. I'm Eric. CDC warns coronavirus coming to U.S. will be tremendous public health threat. And of course, they're a little bit behind, aren't they? By at least a month. And then, of course, they waited to put any kind of travel restrictions in place. And then, of course, they brought sick individuals back to the United States. Here's a summary. Eight new cases confirmed in Lombardy brings daily total to 16 new cases in Italy. Yep, Italy's been hit. So has Iran. China pledges to build 19 new hospitals in Wuhan. Yeah, remember the other day we saw just how well those hospitals were working with their leaky pipes and sewage spilling and other problems. You remember that? Like that's worked out so well for them. Huh. 253 more passengers depart the Diamond Princess as 11 of 13 American evacuees in Nebraska test positive. Local authorities in China warn people will be punished for not returning to work if ordered. Punished. WHO's Tedros window for confronting virus rapidly closing. Looks like it's a little more serious than they were thinking, huh? CDC says virus, tremendous health threat, warns more human-to-human transmission of the virus in the U.S. is likely. I warned that human-to-human transmission of the virus is already taking place and has been for a little while. First case declared in Lebanon. Iran confirms 9 more cases as virus reaches Tehran. South Korea reports massive jump in cases on Friday as total climbed to 204. I mean, it seems to me that most of these things happening kind of prove that the Chinese government hasn't been, forthcoming with information, at least not accurate. Global Times insinuates that U.S. might be covering up coronavirus cases. Yeah, it's probably a pretty good chance that exactly that is happening. I mean, I have listened to a few interviews from people who work in that industry or have relatives that work in the industry, and it sounds to me like they're not really stepping up to the plate and doing their best work. So okay, the Epoch Times reports that 8 CCP leaders were removed from their positions following the discovery of 207 cases of the virus inside, Renshen prison in Shandong, one of the 3 provinces where prison cases have been detected. As we mentioned, the CDC had some pretty chilling words for the American public during a press conference on Friday. During the 12:15 Eastern Time update, the organization warned that it had centralized surge virus response due to a lack of testing kits and the fact that every state but 3 is unprepared for the epidemic. Every state but 3. And by the way, the federal government really is unprepared too. I mean, if we can look back to any disaster, let's take Katrina for example. We see the way they act in crisis. They pillage, they incarcerate, they kill, they disarm. They have a general disloyalty to the public. I'll say this one more time for you. As we mentioned, the CDC had some pretty chilling words for the American public during a press conference on Friday. During the 12:15 p.m. Eastern Time update, the organization warned that it had centralized surge virus response due to a lack of testing kits and the fact that every state but 3 is unprepared. If your state is unprepared, then maybe you want to get prepared. Maybe this whole thing is a lot more serious than any of us know. Maybe. Just maybe. The announcement comes after the Washington Post reported last night that the CDC opposed the State Department's decision to bring the 14 Americans confirmed to have infected or been infected with the virus aboard the Diamond Princess back to the U.S. with the other 300 evacuees, thereby breaking the quarantine and risking a broader outbreak and exposing many of the passengers on the flight who hadn't been infected with the virus. See the incompetence taking place? The CDC was so mad it reportedly asked for its name to be removed from a press release about the evacuation. We also noted at the time that the decision to break the quarantine and bring the 14 infected persons back seemed idiotic. So far, it looks like that's exactly what's happening. As we noted earlier, 11 of 13 people quarantined in Nebraska have now tested positive. Now, do you really believe that it's not more widespread than we're being told? Do you really believe that? I'm just wondering. Please do tell me. And by the way, you can give me a like and thumbs up to help me out. Now, imagine what happens if this hits Omaha, Chicago, New York. Well, wait. It probably already has. What am I saying? If this hits New York or Chicago, schools close down overnight and everything shuts down. The Fed will be powerless, just like in '08. It didn't matter if they were cutting rates, nobody was going to buy an overpriced house. Well, here's if they're working to cover it up, they're going to have to come up with a different reason to, close the schools and shut everything down, don't you think? And at some point, they're not going to be able to cover it up anymore. It's going to be too widespread. Obviously, this shit is highly, highly contagious. It's making me question whether I should be going out in public still or not. It really is. But, the money grubbers, they're always going to be concerned with what happens to the economy. I don't give a shit. It's not going to affect me all that much. Earlier, WHO Director General Dr. Tedros, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, warned that the window is narrowing to suppress the virus before it's too late. That's in contrast to the language he used during the press conference late last month, where the organization finally declared the virus a global pandemic. And we still have news outlets questioning whether or not this is a global pandemic. I mean, how many human-to-human transmissions across the globe has to take place before people understand, or should I say the mainstream media, that, things are probably pretty bad already, and the fact is just waiting to catch up to everyone's reality. Going on to say, soon it'll be a missed opportunity. Okay? Now, you remember those hospitals, the two that China slapped together in Wuhan, that have been compared to prisons in which they reportedly been rife with problems? Well, now, they are planning to build another 19 makeshift hospitals to quarantine more infected patients in Wuhan. I gotta wonder if it's slowing down in China as they claim, as mainstream media and China alike. Why do they need more hospitals? Why do they need 19 more? Why do they need mobile crematoriums? If this isn't as bad as people are saying, not mainstream media or any official medical person such as WHO or CDC, they're starting to get a little freaked out, as you can see in their language. But 19 of these makeshift hospitals. Can you imagine? So far, the city of 11 million has converted 13 existing venues into hospitals. It's 13. With a total of 13,348 beds. The 19 new hospitals would create 30,000 beds according to China's Global Times. Not that you can trust anything coming out of China, again. In other news, minutes ago, 2 more coronavirus cases were confirmed in northern Italy, the region of Lombardy, bringing the country's total announced on Friday to 16. Italy now has some 19 cases. In the U.S., the CDC has warned that only 3 states, California, Nevada, and Illinois, have the testing capacity needed to confront a coronavirus outbreak. Until more become available, the CDC will be handling any necessary surge testing. They added that future human-to-human transmission in the U.S. is possible. Well, I'm adding that human-to-human transmission is going on already, right now. Even likely, they say. Meanwhile, here's what we're looking at so far for cases ex-China in Asia. It looks like Beijing is adopting a new media strategy, implying that the U.S. is concealing a massive outbreak. They go on to say, coronavirus epidemic is getting severe in Japan and South Korea. Problems with coronavirus tests in the U.S. may impede full disclosure of outbreak there. Current flu season in the U.S. is serious. Whether it is related to the coronavirus is worth vigilance. That's what I'm saying. I mean, again, this is not the movies. They're doing the exact opposite as what you see in the movies. The U.S. is actually using some pretty scary surveillance tech to screen flu patients who seek treatment in American hospitals to root out any possible coronavirus cases that might have slipped through. But you know what? They're not doing their jobs, people. Let me move on to another one here. Let me make sure there's nothing else really important that we haven't heard. Oh yeah, let me cover the Americans here. Health experts and local officials, probably all the way up to PN Shinzo, have been fretting about the possibility of an outbreak in Japan, especially with the Tokyo Olympics this summer. You can't just cancel the Olympics like you can cancel the Tokyo Marathon. This comes after U.S. media reported earlier on Friday that 11 of the 13 Diamond Princess evacuees are taken to the University of Nebraska Medical Center ended up testing positive for the virus, which means more individuals must have caught it earlier, just before departing or in transit, as 14 individuals who tested positive at the last minute were allowed aboard the flight that some say broke the quarantine. They're in isolation, or 10 of them are. People are being reinfected. It just goes on and on and on. But let's look at some overlooked issues according to Gail Turberg via Our Infinite World. I hate my dog sometimes. Number one on their list here, COVID-19 is incredibly contagious. COVID-19 transmits extremely easily from person to person. Interpersonal contact doesn't need to be very long. Nope. The virus likely remains active, this is number two, by the way, remains active on inanimate surfaces such as paper, plastic, or metal for many days. There haven't been tests on the COVID-19 virus per se, but studies on similar viruses suggest that human pathogens may remain infectious for up to 8 days. Some viruses that only infect animals can survive for more than 28 days. Number three, given issues 1 and 2 about the only way to avoid spreading COVID-19 seems to be geographic isolation, but in practice, this does not work well. Number 4, the real story regarding the number of deaths and illnesses seem to be far worse than the story in China is telling its own people and the world. The real story seems to be that the number of deaths is far greater than the number reported, perhaps 10 times as high as being reported. And some are saying a multitude of 30, or multiple of 30. The number of illnesses is also much higher. At one point, facilities doing cremations in the Wuhan area were reported to be doing 4 to 5 times the normal number of cremations. Number 5, our ability to identify who has the new virus is poor. Number 6, some people get more severe symptoms from COVID-19 than others. And that goes for any disease, by the way. And that's a little graph of who's the most susceptible to the virus. And as you can see here, European people, it does spread in us, but not to the extent that it does in Asians and other races. Number 7, China has been using geographical quarantine to try to hold down the number of COVID-19 cases. The danger with such a quarantine is that once the economy is down, it is very difficult to come back to pre-quarantine state. And of course, that may have been the whole reason why this bioweapon was released in the first place. Maybe it was to destroy China's economy before China completely destroyed ours. And it's very possible, okay? Okay. Where's the... There's 7. All right. Also, restarting after a shutdown is more difficult than it might appear. Take, for example, a mother who wants to go back to work. She will likely need public transportation and to be operating so she has a way to get to work. School to be open so she doesn't need to worry about her child while she is at work. Masks to be available so that she and her child can comply with requirements to wear them. Stores providing necessities such as food to be open, or she may be too hungry to work. Number 8, a shutdown of as little as 3 months is likely to be damaging to the world economy, and it has been already. Number 9, the longer the shutdown lasts, the more likely there is to be a major collapse of the Chinese economy. Look, it's not just the Chinese economy. It's everybody's economy because we have made China the world's manufacturer of everything. Number 10. Planners everywhere have been guilty of putting too many eggs in one basket, and that's pretty much my point with my last statement. If our world economy collapses, it will be a lesson to be learned. You don't put all your manufacturing capability in one place, because if something happens in that place or to that place, the entire world is fucked. All right, we can move on here. Come on, you piece of shit. All right. This one is on shtfplan.com. Coronavirus kills 2 in Iran. Shocking video shows quarantine violators being herded into re-education camps. I just covered the same information in the last article, so there's something down here I would like to draw your attention to, though. Come on, where's fucking comments at here? Okay. The first one. There's no context to any of the girls' videos. Who knows why they are walking in circles? Exercise, maybe. They are chanting for their city to stay strong. So what? that makes total sense for them to be walking in circles if they only had a small courtyard to work with to get outside and exercise. The guy is partially right. I believe very little from the Epoch Times. They are based in the U.S. and funded by Falun Gong, a cult that has a hard-on for China. They only publish hit pieces on China. And don't get me wrong, there is no reason to believe the Chinese government is a good government, right? The same with ours. And there's no reason to believe that these people are actually good people. So he goes on to say, at least the government didn't murder them like the U.S. government murdered that cult in Waco. Another Yellow Man Bad clickbait post from SHTF Plant. I don't know about the clickbait, but they are demonizing China awfully hard from every direction, except for maybe, except for maybe the WHO and some other individuals. But China is being bashed hardcore, and that was probably the point, right? And what all of this is leading to is this. If there's not enough able-bodied people available to take care of the crops, what little gets planted or harvested, I do expect it to be pretty much the same as last year. Maybe a lack of rain this time in one place, and too much rain in another place that are farmlands. But one way or the other, I think our agricultural is going to be hit really, really hard yet again this year. Global food production is being hit from seemingly every side, thanks to absolute crazy weather patterns and giant locust armies in Africa and the Middle East, and an unprecedented outbreak of African swine fever in China. A lot less food is being produced around the world than originally anticipated. Even during the best of years, we really struggle to feed everyone on the planet, and so a lot of people are wondering what is going to happen as global food supplies become tighter and tighter. The mainstream media in the United States is so obsessed with politics right now that they haven't been paying much attention to this emerging crisis. But the truth is that this growing nightmare is only going to intensify in the months ahead. And I do agree with that. Now, Australia, again, with our interconnected planet, we get food from all kinds of different places, and our country produces food for other places as well. We've made ourselves vulnerable on that level, on the food level, and it doesn't seem like it was a very smart thing to do. We should be investing into vertical farms, using these empty malls for something, right? You can put a nice big fish farm along with a bunch of vertical plants, right? And grow produce inside some of these abandoned malls. It wouldn't cost all that much to do this either. But instead, these malls will remain empty until hell freezes over. So, this is happening in many, many different places, including our own country, including Canada. China's having problems with both pigs and chicken, and a major virus, right? It's sweeping across Asia, and we're not getting shipments from China. That means we're using everything that was existing within our ports since China stopped shipments. So, summer doesn't look very pleasant, people. Doesn't look pleasant at all, and well, for a lot of unprepared people anyway. It will be less of a pain in the ass and less suffering for those of us who prepared at putting food back, putting other things back. In some ways, it will be less of a pain in the ass. But here's the deal: if people find out that you are sitting on a decent amount of food, they're gonna try to take it. They're going to try to take it, which is why you need weapons. You need weapons of all kinds. You need melee weapons. You need firearms. You need crossbows, compound bows. Whatever you can get your hands on as a weapon, you need it. Hell, a wrist rocket with some Chinese stars will leave an impression on somebody that got hit with one. This is all going to lead to social unrest. It's all going to lead to major government crackdowns. It's all going to lead to huge numbers of people going without food and freaking the fuck out. And I thought 2019 would be the year, but timing is a bitch. It's hard to get the timing for everybody. So I do apologize for that. And of course, I say this again, this video, if it were not for giant corporations, these big governments like China, governments like our own, governments across the planet, if it weren't for these entities, most of the world's problems wouldn't exist. They wouldn't be as massive as they are, and we would sure enough be dealing with other problems, but not ones where a disease has been weaponized and is spreading all over the place, which is something that's very difficult to fight. If you're in a situation where you're having to fight other people, well, you just got to get better at the craft of war. That way you can defend your people and keep your stuff, right? And that's the situation we're going to find ourselves in here shortly, is there will be a lack of so-called essential personnel at some point. And when this occurs, it's going to be every man for himself, or every group for themselves, however it works out. And you don't want to be one of the groups, weaker groups, that gets easily taken over. Although I think I will adopt what the French did back in the day, and that is, we don't fucking kill the people of the groups. We take out their leadership and then absorb those people into our group. I think that's maybe the most humane thing to do. Anyway, I thought I'd talk to you about this stuff today. I hope you have a great weekend. If I don't see you, I probably will do a video, though. And until next time, kill the state, live free.